go, and the stream should be live. I hope the stream's live or we're in trouble. Hello everybody. I hope that works. If that doesn't, I'm going to feel a little bit of a tit, but you guys are going to have to shout at me if I am audible. Thank you very much, because we've had this problem a few times, haven't we? So that's fine and well and dandy and good. If you're someone that's a regular here, when I'm starting streams, can you just put the number 1 in chat if you can hear me, and like a number 2 if you can't? Because I think that'd be a pretty good way of doing things. Anyway, hello everyone. We have a little bit of zooming out to do. There we go, that's a start. But we have a little bit of news because the international break has finally come to a close. Everyone's least favourite part of the footballing calendar, because as time goes by, you're sort of looking at it and being like, well, ooh, when's the next game? Thank you, Dominic, I appreciate that. Thank you, Michael, and thank you, Pat. But as like time goes by and things roll on and all this kind of stuff, we end up in a little bit of a weird position where in sort of the world of football, you come out of an international break and you're like, oh, we've kind of just reset the club game, and you kind of forget where you were. So in this stream, I'm going to give everyone a little bit of a reminder where we were, where we're going to be, where Daniel Farke says that we're going to be, and ultimately how exactly Leeds United under Daniel Farke intend to prove various naysayers and doubters and pundits wrong. Because that was a surprisingly big part of the press conference that I am going to take a little bit of a deeper dive into as we go further along. However, before we do so, we're just going to have a quick dip through absolutely everything. We're going to go roughly in the order of the questions that were asked in the press conference, I think, because that's sort of going to help a little bit. But I will go a little bit out of order at various points just in case it makes narrative sense, because we're going to stick, for the most part, transfers with the rest of the transfers, because it doesn't really make sense to put them anywhere else. So I am going to just rejig a couple of bits to keep, because I think we all want the transfer stuff with the rest of the transfer stuff, because if you don't care about the transfer stuff, that's fine. You can just skip through a little bit of it. But if you do want the transfer stuff, fan-dabby-dozy. That's all well and good. And a hell of a lot of it was transfer stuff. And we are going to start with the opening question that was effectively, what did you think about what happened on deadline day? And obviously, when it comes to Euros out of order, thank you, Robert. Effectively, no one went into this being like, Daniel Farke's going to be really happy with how deadline day went, because obviously the guy didn't want anything, therefore it's completely fine. The guy did want things. The guy specifically wanted a forward, but he had to answer questions about it, and the start of his question, he very specifically emphasised that he likes a little bit of openness and he likes transparency when it comes to this kind of stuff. Therefore, he was happy to ask for those senior signings because he valued sort of the honesty in the conversation. However, with all that considered, he's basically saying that it's closed now. So whatever he says at this point can't really influence anything, and it would just be complaining for the sake of complaining. Specifically, the phrasing that he said was, we won't hear a bad word from him on it at all, because there's no real benefit. His job now is to adapt to the reality rather than being negative in any way, shape or form. There's no point feeling sorry for ourselves, just focus on what we have to do. And obviously a follow-up question later in the presser specifically targeted, okay, that's all well and good for this period of time, but what about January? And I think he was similarly sort of stanced when it came to January, in which he basically said, I'm not thinking about January at all, I'm happy the window's over. We had many good signings, which is very true, strengthened in defence, strengthened in midfield, just focused and concentrated on working with the team and getting in the best position for January. So if in January we're in a place where we don't need any replacements, fantastic, Daniel Farke's done his job incredibly well. Focused on right now, and he can't afford to give attention anywhere but the squad that is with us at the moment, which is sort of wise and clever, and it means that you're focusing on the people that are actually present rather than people that aren't, which is something that he's always done in his press conferences. And the only focus is on winning as many points as possible, which is quite good. Andy, that's not necessarily the case. In theory, we'd be able to sell someone up to the end of June, which would fix the PSR thing. But the question is, are we going to sell anyone? Which is another interesting point of the presser, because he was asked, were you happy that there was a relative lack of sales? So he said, it doesn't affect what we wanted to do, because you don't want to lose key players, because losing key players, quote, shouldn't be a topic at all. You have to strengthen, so selling your best players would make you really hopeless. He noted how Premier League clubs really struggle to sign new players anyway, so obviously looking at, well, we could sign new players, but if we sell our best players at the same time, you're not really making any gains, you're just sort of standing still and recycling a little bit. We need to keep the best players that build the core of the squad, and that sort of adds to the continuity side of things, because I think that continuity is a very important thing to do. But on the rest of the sales point, he said that it's important for valued players to have the chance to move on, so be open and honest as early as possible. Example, Bamford. But in other cases, such as Matteo and Largi, it was significantly later. So Largi was a call based on potential game time. He wanted La Liga, so you're not going to say, no, please stay. If he wants to go and play, wants to go and play. Hasn't affected planning, reportedly. And when asked for a message for disappointed fans, he said he's not really got one. Supporters can say whatever they like, which is true. We can say whatever we like. There's no one actively stopping us. But it's his job to react to the reality. He's paid to make the most of what we have. He can read the comments. Specifically, he was like, yeah, anyone can go online and read what people are saying. Which made me think a little bit of a sort of, let's be conscious of that kind of thing then, because I don't want to be actively ruining people's mental health, but I never have, so that's fine. But like, you can read the comments on the wing positions, but he's using it to motivate players. So the likes of an Aronson and a Harrison, he's using it to sort of go, well, you can do better now, you can prove all these people wrong, which is a quite good man management approach to take. And the club effectively are going to stick together even more as a result of it, which is quite nice. He also noted it was tough for a couple of years with the finances, with the contracts, with all that kind of stuff, but he steadied the ship a bit. He brought the club back to the Premier League, and we really, really want to stay there. For good. Won't be easy, but they'll put a lot of work in, which is what matters. We'll get a little bit into injury stuff. I'm going to save the bulk of the injury bits for a video that I'm doing tomorrow morning, which is going to be a little bit of a Fulham preview, which is going to be quite nice. But in essence, Perry is out for at least the next 2 games, and then we'll see, was the way that it was phrased. For me, this says that come on, thanks brain. 2-syllable player, English, slightly older, Darlow. There we go. Darlow will likely be playing in that place, and potentially Meslier is the bench option because we weren't able to ship him out, so it's kind of an interesting thing. There's going to be question marks around Mecha, because he's got a little bit of a knock, and Piru also has a knock. So Piru has a bruise on his calf, Mecha has an issue with his foot, and it's sort of waiting to see how the bodies react, which is a really important thing to do. Make sure that your injured players aren't permanently injured. Ampadu and Tanaka are potentially back. Potentially he's doing a lot of work. They've been in team training since the beginning of the week. Ampadu is ahead of Tanaka in his recovery because he's, for some reason, I don't understand how, Ampadu is basically a superhero when it comes to injury recovery. He's always ahead of schedule, which is terrifying, but it's quite good to see. But it could be a late decision. We may end up in a position where we take one of the two, or we take them both, or we take neither, because we're going to make sure that the players are fit and healthy. We're not going to make sure that we're playing people in a position that it's going to make things hurt a little bit, which is fine. Farke being corporate today, his lips are closed off. I would say this wasn't particularly corporate, to be completely honest with you. This felt like an uncorporate press conference. If it was corporate, you would have just said, we're not going to talk about what happened on deadline day because whatever. No, he was actively at the start of the presser being like, no, I really value honesty, and that's why I said what we wanted. We didn't get it to happen. So I think if you're going full corporate, you don't even reflect on the fact that you wanted anything. If you were going full corporate, you wouldn't have said in a press conference in the first place that you wanted anything. But he did, and I kind of respect that. As far as like all of our managers in the time that I've particularly like followed Leeds recently go, I quite like Farke doing his press conferences. And I know that a lot of people in the comments and stuff tend to look at it and they tend to go, he just keeps on yapping. This guy just keeps talking. It's like, I'd rather he give a detailed answer than go a little bit Big Sam and go like, no, actually, I think I'm better than Man City. If they called me Sam Allardyce, I'd have a World Cup under my belt already. It's not true, is it? You're a bit shit, aren't you, Sam Allardyce? Whereas at the moment we've got a manager that isn't afraid to be both honest and detailed with that honesty. It's not just a yes/no, it's a yes because. Which is a pretty good spot to be in. Other potential injury risks are fairly limited. Byram got elbowed in the head, apparently, which is a fun one. But Rodon is also fine. A lot of people were worried about the fact that he'd been dropped from the Wales squad. I think that was probably precautionary, looking back at it, but we'll see. All those injuries may have potentially given Calvert-Lewin an opportunity as well. Saying that Ampadu is always getting injured, if you consider the number of games of football that he's played for the club, let's have a quick look. FB ref. Ampadu. Isn't Ampadu? In his first season at Leeds in the Championship, played every single game. In his second season, he played 29 games. A lot of those at centre-back covering for Pascal Struijk. I wouldn't say he's always injured. I think that one's a little bit of a stretch. And that's a stretch that you don't need to make. Like, you can just keep it reined. There's no need to just sort of leap to the problem. On Calvert-Lewin, he said that he's been in team training for 4 weeks, which is pretty damn good. If you're in team training under Daniel Farke, you're probably getting in a matchday squad. He's not 100%, but you need game time for that, which is a very sort of important note, and is something that I'm going to keep a little bit of an eye on. So I have noticed that in the past, Daniel Farke hasn't committed to saying anyone is 100% fit if they've not been playing recently, because I quite like the way that he considers match fitness as a big part of the fundamental fitness. That's a nice little variance from what you typically get when it comes to football management, where it's they've been training, chuck them in. It's a bit Bielsa-y in that you want someone not just physically healthy, but they need to be at the fitness levels that you actually need, because that's a thing that I'll get into a little bit more detail a little bit further on and downwards. Where else were we? More likely he'll get more and more minutes. He's in contention. For me, that says that you probably get a Calvert-Lewin start this weekend, especially if Mecha and Piru are both doubts. It'd be a pretty good game for Calvert-Lewin to make his first proper start. Then there was a little bit of Perry-Meslier stuff. So was the Perry injury a part of Meslier not leaving? He said it played a little part in Meslier staying, because we knew that he was injured immediately after the match, right before the international break. Newcastle, that was the one. But he mentioned that he was happy with the squad. Trusts all of his keepers. Good to have Ilan for the upcoming period. And then how he reacted to the situation, it wasn't an easy situation, but being that he's experienced for a young player, and the fact that changing your number one isn't easy, he praised Meslier for how he picked himself up, reacted in training, and worked hard to consistently reach that better level and do better than he was doing when he was dropped, which is a very good sign. For me, it says that Meslier sort of cares about the way that he's perceived, which is a very good thing, especially when that isn't always the case when it comes to footballers. He then called him a top-quality character, which was quite nice. Was asked a couple of bits about various bits of doubting as well. So what various people are saying about the sort of club. So I'll have a quick look at comments before I do so, however, because this is sort of the main crux, I think. So exactly how Daniel Farke wants Leeds to prove the various naysayers and doubters wrong. So I'll dive into that in a second. What do you think of Joe's assumption, which he put to Radio Leeds Brynlaw? I thought he had a chat with Popey. And it's Popey that's on Radio Leeds. So I'm going to assume it's Popey. The ball kept some of last year's championship winning players together as a safety net for going down. That's not my thought on it at all, to be honest. My thought on it is you need a deep squad and a squad with a decent level of quality. And if you sell any more players... Hang on, sorry. Got a bit of popcorn in my teeth. If you sell a player that was part of your first team last season, you need to buy a brand new player in to become part of your first team for the next season. And that is obviously going to put a lot more pressure on your recruitment team. So say, if, as a lot of people were suggesting, we were to sell Gruev, we were to sell Struijk, we were to sell, I don't know, sod it, Nonto, whatever, we'll do 3 examples. In that case, you go from signing 10 players, which we did, a lot of people wanted 11, to, okay, you have to add another centre-back to cover for Struijk, you have to add another winger to cover for Nonto, and we were struggling with the one winger in the first place, and you have to add another central midfielder, which again, you don't want to lose that depth. So I think, A, you get to retain the characters that you already have and that you already know. B, you make things far easier for your recruitment team, sort of, depending on fees and stuff. But C, they're not all terrible players. So I'm kind of a fan. Like, I don't know. Poppy was biased. He rated Leeds window 7.5 or 8 out of 10. I mean, if he thinks it was a decent window, then he thinks it was a decent window. What I am drinking is caffeine-free Pepsi Max. I wouldn't really say it's a bias thing, to be honest with you. I'd just say it's a disagreeing with you thing. I don't know what about that is a bias. It's just having a different opinion. Like, for me, I think it was a reasonably decent window. On reflection, I'm going to adjust my 6 to a 7. Because throughout the window, I was like, you know what, this is really good. And then we kept not signing a forward, and we kept not signing a forward. And I think throughout that last couple of weeks, that was sort of like drilling into my head. And it was like, well, you could rate this highly, but we've not got X, Y, or Z. Looking back, missing out on one player, because realistically, that is what we missed out on. In terms of forwards, we signed 2 strikers. Like, that's not too bad. In terms of budget, we spent what we could without sales, but I've explained why I wouldn't particularly lean towards doing sales either. Admittedly, selling Bamford would have been great, selling Meslier would have been great, etc, etc, etc. But I'm probably landing on about a 7, so I'm not too far behind Popey now, to be fair with you. 4 or 5 out of 10 is an absolute fucking joke, and you know it. Come on. Come on, Andy, you're better than that. We built a fairly decent, like, almost starting 11 of players with the business that we did in the window. You don't get to call it a 4 or 5 out of 10. At least without sort of explaining why you've come to that number, because that is madness. That is genuinely a little bit wild. But on the topic of the proving the doubters wrong, proving the people who assume that Leeds will go down wrong. He was first asked, are the doubters a bit of a motivation? And his response is pretty damn good. He said, yes, it absolutely is. Even with signings, this would have been a big challenge, and there is a big gap between the Championship and the Premier League, so you didn't need motivation in the first place. Because you approach it and you go, yeah, we're going to do absolutely everything that we can to remain here. But beyond that, he said that it's a very, very big goal to be the first team in quite a significant amount of time that breaks the curse of 3 up, 3 down. Because it's not going to be a very easy curse to break. You are waiting for one of those 17 clubs to screw up. And at the moment, it looks like those screw-ups could be West Ham, they could be Wolves. Forest seem to have shot themselves in the face a little bit for some reason, which is quite interesting. But it sort of gives you an opportunity to apply pressure to those sides. And it kind of puts me in a decent enough spot, to be fair. Not just me, 78 RPM. 2 weeks ago, fans were saying 4, 5, 6 don't change goalposts. It's not changing goalposts, though. It's looking back on it and going, yeah, actually, in retrospect, outside of being in the heat of the moment, because let's be honest, let's be fair with ourselves, in the heat of any given moment, you're going to be more angry than is the reality. It's not as bad as we're pretending. That defence, sorted. Genuinely fantastic. Outside of the Arsenal match, which I'm happy to look at as a little bit of an outlier, because it is, we've defensively been ridiculously good. Going forward, yeah, not fantastic. But in the matches against Newcastle and Everton, who are standard Premier League sides that you can expect to come up against consistently, rather than Arsenal, Champions League semi-finalists, having beaten Real Madrid very soundly in PSV 7-1, that's the outlier. So if you look at all of the other sort of data that we've got, that's not a bad side at all, and it's a side that was significantly built through that transfer window. So I'm absolutely going to take that. Out of our 3 games, we've outperformed our opponents on XG twice, which ain't bad for a newly promoted team, in the slightest. But it then got to being asked, so what exactly does making the most of it look like? So it's showing trust in players when those doubters are around. So specifically, he also said that hard work is always the answer. And then there was a line that I really, really, really liked, which was, you always get what you invest, which is quite good. And it shows that we're happy to throw that passion and all of ourselves into stuff at the moment. But we're happy to have a swing at it, actually give a shit, which is very nice to do. And he then said that we might not have the best individual quality, but you can account for that in other ways. So in this specific case, he said you can push to be one of the fittest teams in the Premier League and beat the other sides in other places, which is sort of important, I would say. Apply pressure to other teams in as many ways as you can. So in this case, you can do it literally by pressing, by running for the thanks, brain, by running for longer than them, by running harder than them, faster, and making sure that physically you're in a better position than they are, which is going to make things significantly nicer for you, which is absolutely lovely. Also said to make sure that the togetherness is top class, which is why I'm kind of a fan, again, in retrospect, of not just saying, yeah, well, we want Jack Harrison gone. Because if at that point there's no interest in Jack Harrison, then you say, okay, we'll leave the door open. And by fostering that togetherness from the start, it means that you're not in a position where you've got an entire dressing room of people who are part of one big social group, and then in the corner, you've got Melier and you've got Harrison. Because that doesn't benefit anyone. Like, in reality, all that does is apply even more pressure to players that could really do without that pressure being applied to them. And then there were a couple of other sort of wider points. So need to make sure that the tactical side of things is spot on. Preparation's essential, making sure that you understand all the little nuances of the way that, for example, Fulham play, including in-game tweaks and stuff, which we have seen a little bit of so far this season. So I quite like the way that we dealt with things against Newcastle. That change of Metcher for Calvert-Lewin, I think, was very, very good. Metcher was sort of dominating that sort of, what's it called? Sort of like the no man's land kind of place in the like half spaces between defence and midfield. Because he would force the centre backs to come up, he would try to beat them physically for the ball, and whilst that might not have paid off all the time, it was still absolutely exhausting for a centre back to have to deal with, which over time causes them a hell of a lot of problems. Which means that when Calvert-Lewin comes on, he's against basically exhausted defenders, looking completely fresh, and is able to go at them as hard as he wants, which is absolutely lovely. Like, in my opinion, that's spectacular. Also note that set pieces are an important topic, but there isn't just one answer. Work on different things to be competitive. There isn't just one thing that you have to do and it's the magic potion that keeps you in the Premier League. No, you got a lot of work to do all across the pitch, which I thought was very, very good. And then there was my favourite question. Then there was the set piece question. And it was the one that made me think, damn, this question would have been answered a little bit differently if we would have ended up signing Harry Wilson. Because he was asked if he could confirm who the main set-piece takers are, with the note that like Anton Stack's been doing a little bit so far this season, but you're going to want Anton Stack in the box. He's a big boy. So what's the plan? So in response to the question that was basically, can you tell us who your set-piece coach is going to be? The first thing he said was, no. Which is, I love it. I'm a big fan of that. Because it depends on the starting lineup. So whilst he sort of noted the existence of set-piece specialists and sort of went, yeah, it would have been nice to sign one, sometimes your set-piece specialist is on the bench. It's the same reason that in years past, that I think is a sort of important like thing to keep an eye on. Keep an eye on what you've been saying previously and see if your opinion changes. But in years past, I was sort of saying like, no, I personally wouldn't take Ward-Prowse, because as much as a lot of people look at Ward-Prowse and they go, yeah, but he can hit a really good free kick. The question is, can you hit a really good free kick if you're on the bench? Because if the rest of your game isn't good enough to keep up with the fact that you can bang a free kick into the top corner, you're not going to get on the pitch. Even a little bit. So saying that like a set-piece specialist is sometimes just on the bench. So it depends on where you also see a weakness in the opponent, what your actual first team is looking like, and all that kind of stuff. Then specifically noted that Stack's taken some, which I'm not the biggest fan of. Like, free kicks, go for it. Or at least direct free kicks where there's a feeling that you can maybe score. Fantastic. Really, really rate what he does from those. Corners, you're a lanky boy, Anton. I would rather you be in the box, to be honest. Especially when it comes to defensive corners. You always see Anton Stack being one of the options for people that head it clear, and it's like, could you just do that over there? Just do that on the other end of the pitch. That'd be lovely. But you also know that Jack Harrison's taken some, which is interesting. Listing Harrison very, very early in there is kind of fascinating for me, because that says that Harrison might be starting a little bit more. I don't know. We'll have to find out. I wouldn't mind that, to be fair. He's performed reasonably well at the start of the season. He's doing the thing where he just sort of brings you around a bit, which is completely fine by me. Also, Gudmundsson can take them. Aronson can take them. Ish. Gruev can take them. We can't confirm who will take them at Fulham. We need to be a bit unpredictable. I liked this, because he's sort of being aware that at some points, the other team is going to watch your press conference to see what they can learn. So why would you talk about all of it, you know? Like, Bielsa was the other end of that spectrum, and I really respect the other end as well, which is basically, at the end of the day, what happens on the football pitch will decide who wins the game. It's not going to be what happens in a press conference days in advance, so like, I might as well just tell you everything. But it's fine. Like, that's, you know, I like both ends of that. I like the sort of cheeky little, if Fulham are paying attention, I don't want to give away the secrets, because it's a nice little bit of personality. And I don't think we have enough like personality hanging out in football at the moment. Too much of it is way too serious, and being able to get away from that is really nice. Couple of other little questions that were asked included: have you specifically targeted a solid defence? Which he was like, yeah, because I think being rock solid at the back is essential. We scored a lot last season, but we're not going to do the same this season for obvious reasons. We want to be difficult to create chances against. Sensible. Won't blow opponents out of the park. Again, very sensible to recognise that. But a good balance of defence and attack is a must. You don't want to park the bus still, because we didn't. We played very aggressive stuff against Everton at points and against Newcastle at points. So a lot of people have looked at the fact that like we've not scored from open play yet. That's fine, but we've still created a hell of a lot of chances. And the fact of the matter is, the player that is going to start as our striker for, I think, the bulk of the season, being Calvert-Lewin, hasn't started any of those games. And in addition to that, Mecha only started one. 2 of those games were started by Joel Piroe instead. Which, Pirou's alright, but Piroe isn't the same level threat as a Calvert-Lewin. He's not going to force opportunities physically like Mecha does, and his positioning isn't quite the same as Calvert-Lewin. Which means that both of those are going to be better options. So we are creating chances at the minute. We just got to start putting them away. And that is something that comes with a little bit of time and a little bit of patience, and eventually you get there. And effectively he wraps it up by saying you want to attack, but you want to have a good structure against the ball, which is quite nice. I enjoyed the general gist of that press conference. It was a pretty damn strong press conference. I'm going to run a very quick poll, by the way, because I kind of want to see what people's opinions are. Fulham vs Leeds. What's the results? Do we go? In fact, Fulham are at home, so I'll put them first. I don't want to be biased here, so the home team always goes first. Or a draw, or a Leeds win. Well, let me know what you're thinking by answering that poll in the chat, because I'm a little bit curious. I'm kind of on the fence. Leeds just need to achieve 10 points every 10 games to survive relegation. Why not just say a point per game? That feels cleaner. It feels a lot easier to be like, Leeds need 1 point per game, as opposed to saying, Leeds need 38 points in 38 games. Like, no, just it'll do. It's fine. Can't compute the mind of a happy club. What? Why? Right? Why is it that anyone that actively supports the football club and is like, yeah, this is fine, is considered a happy clapper? I don't understand. Like, as wording goes, it's one of my least favourite phrases that exist in the lexicon of football. Because, in fact, right, hang on. I got a book. Right, there's a new book out that just covers a bunch of like football terms, and I want to see if there is anything on the term happy clapper. Miscellaneous football, language of goal scoring, language of football matches, language of football media, football measurements, players and managers. It'll be media, probably. Unless there's something in the epilogue. Page 126. Let's have a look. Because I want to see what the wider sort of population thinks of the term happy clapper. All smiles, breaking silence, returning to winning ways, boost, blows, out prefixed. You just sense... Yeah, that's fair. Selection headaches, tipping points, vague mini... What? Any youngsters watching? Commentator's curse. Penny for the thoughts. I don't think there's going to be anything happy clappy. There isn't. Interesting. Okay. Rather be a happy clapper than a pessimist. Yeah, absolutely. To be honest, like that's fine. Don't mind it. Excuse me, Joe. We're not created a hell of a lot of chances. Our XG is rubbish. Right. Okay. In comparison to the teams that we have faced in those given matches. So if we go to the internet, the internet. Aha. If we go to the anyway, looking at XG. XG against Everton, we had 2. Everton had 0.8. We've outperformed them on XG. We would have outperformed them on XG even if it weren't for the penalty. XG against Arsenal, admittedly, not good. We looked very, very bad against Arsenal. Had 0.2. Very, very bad. They had 2.7. So 5 is a bad look by comparison, to be fair. But that's because they overperformed their XG. Newcastle United, XG of 0.7. They had an XG of 0.5. For me, we've outperformed 2 of those teams. We've been fairly unlucky to not score more against Everton. Let's be honest, we were unlucky to not score more against Newcastle United because a lot of the times we were putting the ball across the box and no one got a foot to it. That doesn't go on your XG because there isn't a shot. XG only counts when someone takes a shot, which is sort of the difference maker in terms of that. And admittedly, we're looking at a very, 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 very small data set, as Robert has said down here. There we go. We're 3 games in. But from an XG perspective, whilst we're not keeping up with some of the other clubs in the league, that's fine for me. Because we don't need to. This isn't a case of we need to win every single week. This is a case of we need to keep pace with the lower mid-table sides. And at the moment, we're doing that. And if you have a look at the 2 games where we've struggled to create, they are Champions League clubs. Very obviously, we're going to have a little bit of a struggle there. Newcastle United just sold Alexander Isak for more than our entire transfer window spend. That's not the ballpark that we're in at the minute. And the fact that we're not creating 1,000 chances against them and we're still outperforming them on XG ain't to be sniffed at. Yeah, it's not spectacular, but it ain't half bad. I'll take it, to be honest with you. Leeds happy clapper. If I didn't love Leeds, I would not watch football or clap at all. That's fair enough. Look it up in Wikipedia. I mean, is Wikipedia really gonna have a thing for happy clapper? It feels like that's not gonna be a thing. Happy slapping, maybe. No, the only thing for happy clapper is a thoroughbred racehorse in Australia who earned 7.3 million Australian dollars, which is a crazy amount of money. Let's see what we got. Happy clapper definition. Apparently it's a Christian term, which is interesting. Football definition. A happy clapper is someone that is more likely to cheer the team than boo them. Yeah, because I support the team. That's how it works. I like the football club. That'll do it, to be honest with you. 1 win every 4 matches. I mean, yeah, if you throw in draws as well, that'll do it, to be honest. 1 win every 4 matches gets you 0.75 points per game, which across the length of a season, 28, 29 points, give or take. So you just need a bunch of draws in there as well, which does the job. In recent seasons as well, 28, 29 points probably keeps you up. Hoping Joe's seen it in the comments, makes comments. Wait, what am I making my comments on? Oh, the 1 win every 4. Okay, cool. Better a happy club than a dour anti-fan. Ooh, I like anti-fan. Anti-fan is... I like that. That's fun. Nobody down around, just giving bare minimum analysis of survival. I want 60 points. You want 60 points? I mean, everyone wants. I want about 100 points, but I don't think I'm going to get it. Not happy with that definition. Oh, you're a dour anti-fan of that definition. Oh no. Yeah, I've just had a quick search of the word happy clappers, and happy clappers is apparently also on the Leeds United subreddit, where someone did a post the other, well, I say the other day, 2 years ago, in which he was like, I'm the kind of guy who probably gets described as a happy clapper. Why are happy clappers so demonised? The one who just loves Leeds, whatever happens. What I'd like to have a discussion about is why and when did football fans become so damn miserable? Lots of fans seem to enjoy losing so they can tear into players or offer their insight into why everything went wrong. I don't remember the fickleness ever being that bad. At this point, we were fourth in the table, and people want the manager sacked. Never booed since 2006-07 must be a happy clapper. Yeah, I mean, that's... I think supporting your football club isn't quite reason to be called a happy clapper. But if people disagree, then people are going to disagree. I'm going to create a Wikipedia on it, you'll be my source. Good luck, because Wikipedia in recent years have been clamping down hard on new page creation, apparently. Sorry, got an email I had to quickly check. Cool. Sorted. But yeah, that's like, I don't mind being positive about the football team that I quite like, because I quite like them. And I like talking about them, and I like talking with other people about them, because it's a shared hobby that, like, thousands to millions of people have. So I'm not gonna actively look to feel bad about that. Like, it's gonna be fine. We're okay. We're good. Urban Dictionary post. That's different. Come on. Let's have a look. Urban Dictionary. That's a hell of a word of the day. Happy clapper. Let's have a look. Seriously religious person. Yeah, I'll take that. I'm seriously religious about Leeds United. There we go. That'll do. It can also be used as a description of someone naive or easy to please. I wouldn't say I'm naive. I'd say I'm looking to be happy, because I think looking to be miserable is a little bit misguided. I think that doesn't really help anybody. I wouldn't say naive. I'd say the amount of sort of information surrounding this football club and everyone to do with it probably means that I don't quite count as naive anymore. With the sort of sheer amount of data that I take in around this silly football club. But, I mean, fair enough. 18-year-old spotted in senior Leeds training with Harry Gray ahead of Fulham clash. Let's take a guess. I'm going to go Sam Chambers. Is it... Oh, Reece Chadwick. Hello. Very interesting. Okay. Reece Chadwick making his way into the senior side would be fantastic. He's very good. If we'd gone out and broken PSR rules, would have been hit harder than anyone else because everyone hates us. There is a little bit of that. So, I think it's not just that. I think it's a case of the other times that PSR was breached. So if I have a look at Nottingham Forest, all transfers, transfer marked. Okay, so the season that went absolutely bananas was 22-23, right? At that point, clubs are reasonably able to say, no, we're still affected by COVID, because that's within the 3-year window. And the fact that they're able to say that means that they got away with it a little bit more. They had a mitigating factor. The same applied for Everton, who were making massive losses, but were able to say, look, imagine if COVID didn't happen, then we're projecting this, which is, for the most part, bollocks. But it acted as a mitigating factor, which meant that they only got deducted 2 points. On the other hand, we don't get that. because that was a very, very long time ago now. We're not in the midst of a global economic breakdown. Instead, we're just a sort of bunch of chill guys trying to make our way through the transfer window. And to breach PSR at this stage isn't just a breach. It would have to be a very deliberate breach. To say, as a club, we're looking at PSR, we're going to spend everything that we are allowed to spend, and then spend beyond that, says that A, you're aware of what you're allowed to spend, and B, you spent beyond it on purpose. So being an aggravated breach would mean it would be a bigger penalty anyway. And I don't really think that in terms of points, we're going to have that many to piss about with. We're not really going to have the opportunity to throw points down the drain in order to sign Harry Wilson, who might not over the course of a season get you 6 points. Like if you chucking the boat out and you're saying, let's get the maddest player we possibly can, like doing a pie show or something, maybe there's a shout that could get you enough points, but it's tough. And to do the calculation of, is it worth it to spend another £20 million right now when that could be the points deduction that gets us relegated and costs us £120 million next year, ain't worth it. Ain't really worth it for me, which would be a little bit nuts. Happy clappers are a new phenomenon to me. I let my imagination work out like an echo chamber on a high-numbered block. What do you mean? An echo chamber on a high-numbered vlog? You might have to explain that one a little bit more. Too many liars on the Leeds board. Who are we talking about this time? Who do you feel lied to by? I think the Fulham game is the first real measure of where we're at this season. Yeah, maybe. It's a tough one though, because there's an argument that Everton was that, because Everton was us coming up against what I would call fairly average Premier League opposition, and seeing how things work out. And admittedly, the squad wasn't complete at that point. We didn't have Calvert-Lewin, we didn't have Okafor in the squad, we didn't have James Justin in. Hold on. But they were missing players as well. So it was a sort of test of squad depth versus squad depth, which I think we came out on top of, which we did. We won, and we were better on XG and all that kind of stuff. On the other hand, I think this is a better test of what the squad looks like when it's in a comfier place. And obviously it's going to be one of those where you have to sort of look at various underlying metrics and stuff like that. Robbie Evans is one of them. Right, okay. If you can tell me what lie you're specifically referring to, then absolutely go for it. But I don't think he outwardly lied during the press briefing thing. Admittedly, Parag saying that we can expect more and more is done at the end of the window. That was a pain in the arse. Thanks for that one, Parag. But I think that came from a place of overconfidence rather than a place of lying, if that makes sense. I don't know. I mean, for example, when Joe had 5 or 6 guests and all agreeing together, or people agreed with each other. Like, if a significant swathe of the fan base are feeling positive at any given moment and are like, yeah, this is doing pretty damn well, I'm kind of happy with where we're at, and 90% of people feel that way, and you've got a panel show kind of thing that has you and 5 guests, you're just going to invite 5 people that A, want to be on, B, you want to be on, and C, are quite good in front of a camera. Because the number of people that I have talked to about YouTubey things and have asked sort of like, how do I get into doing YouTube stuff? I was like, 1, are you comfortable in front of a camera? And they'll go, not really tried it. That's kind of the thing that you need to do for things to work. But that's what you're looking for. You're looking for people that you have a good rapport with and have a chat. What you're not going to do is you're not going to go through and sort of like put out a shout and go, does anybody fucking hate the club at the moment? If so, come on a podcast. Sorry about that. That was fun. Because that's just going to lead to a worse quality of stuff. Because if I'm, like, putting out a stream and I invite, like, 4 people that I know and am comfortable with, and then a 5th person that I've never talked to and has never been on YouTube, or all this kind of stuff, that's not good for anyone. And all you've done is you've said, yeah, well, some people think this, so we've invited them on. Some people think the world is flat. I don't think they should be allowed to draw maps. But I suppose I'm a round earth happy clapper. Uh, agreement is sinful, absolutely. JT's not a fan of an echo chamber and large debates. I mean, that's fair enough. If he's not a fan of it, he's not a fan of it. But it's a case of not actively going out of your way to say who is in a really, really grumpy mood, and I will have you on at the moment. Like, that, it feels a bit weird to force it in that manner. Like, if people think that, brilliant. If people don't think that, they're not going to invent a new perspective for themselves and build a new personality around something they don't actually think for the sake of avoiding an echo chamber. It's an echo chamber if you've deliberately cut out people that disagree with you. And I will be completely clear, right? And this is in reference to Joe's stuff. Every time I've been asked to be on a panel thing, it's been a case of, are you free? Cool. Do you want to come on? There's no asking what my opinion is on a thing. There's been many, many times where everyone's been like, for example, last season, losing their head at Ilameli, and I've gone, it's not really on him. So the Sunderland one, for example, it hit a fucking sprinkler. Like, I'm not blaming him for that one even now. And that's clearly not an echo chamber, because there are people that disagree. It's just, if people happen to agree, then that's fine. That's okay. That's all good. Run a 15-minute anti-Farke stream, no one joined. No, trust me, people join those. I'm not allowed to comment in them anymore, though. The world is flat, though. I mean, it depends. My own personal, but I'm addicted to jigsaws, so every world that I live in is flat. True story. It's not a true story. I don't care about jigsaws. Not to do with grumpy mood. How do you mean not to do with grumpy mood? Okay, I'll say it the other way around. If everyone is miserable, so for example, the Swansea match last season where we drew 2-2 and it was Mellier's fault. If everyone is miserable and feeling like crap, do you go out of your way and say, I need someone happy? Because otherwise, it's just going to be a sad echo chamber. No, you don't do that. But you let people authentically say what they actually think, as opposed to what they don't think. Because saying what you don't think, that defeats the point of YouTube. The point of YouTube is, it's... How do I say this? YouTube as a concept is what happens if media goes 100% free market. And people want to present what they want to present, and a lot of the time that is an authentic perspective of what they think, which is what you get on this channel, which is why we're even like 15 minutes into a conversation on whatever we're talking about right now. I don't know how to phrase it. But you're not going to be in a situation where people are actively seeking out people just for the sake of, yeah, but this will lead to a fun argument, because it's a bit nonsense. Leave manufactured balance to the BBC. I mean, they kind of have to, because of government mandate, but... you seem like a jigsaw guy. I don't know if I'd take that as a compliment. I might, do I? Is being a jigsaw guy a compliment? I think it is. Jigsaws are fun enough, I think. Never been one for jigsaws, but well. Metro have to take Harry Gray. We might for the bench. I think it was mentioned that there were doubts. They weren't definitely gone. But I'll cover that in the video that I do tomorrow morning. But I don't think we'll need to take Harry. If we want to, then we will. But I don't think it's a must. I think he'll be the 21st man in that squad. Some channels are enforced echo chambers, not this one or others I choose to watch, certainly not just Josie. Yeah, like, I'm happy to have whoever on at any time to talk about anything, like, it's okay. Like, even after I had that disagreement with KG on the Bamford stuff, I was still like, and let's hash it out, let's have a conversation on one of our respective channels and we'll talk things over a little bit. That doesn't feel echo chambery to me. It's just if people happen to agree on something, you're not going to say, well, you can't be a guest then. That's just how conversation works sometimes. If the entire fan base is feeling pretty good because we're in the Premier League, we're doing better than 1 point per game, and we've lost a single time and it was to Arsenal, then it's okay. That's fine. I think public opinion tends to be a tide, and if you're looking at the tide and saying, why is all the water going in the same direction, you're sort of misunderstanding what's going on there. People used to the TalkSports thing where they have to have contact. Yeah, like, that's the thing. I'm happier making stuff that I'd be happy to watch, and I don't like watching the screaming match bollocks that you get out of TalkSport. JT got vilified for backing Farke. Likewise, to be fair. I remember me and JT being incredibly smug on Joe's channel, being like, we told you. And he was like, yeah, you did a bit. No striker now on the Calvert-Lewin and Harry Gray. Piru and Mecha aren't necessarily out. They've got knocks. I am 27. Wish the media wasn't free market. Why? If the media wasn't free market, then it'd just be a case of big corporations get to do their shit, but individual creators get to do nothing. Which is a depressing world to live in, to be honest with you. More chess, I'm guessing. I mean, I've played a bit of chess. Not tons, but I'm not that good at it either. Like, I'm gonna go into fun fact mode. But I got a bit of ADHD going on, as a lot of you will know at this point, because I keep talking about it. Which means that keeping your focus for an extended period of time on a thing that you are struggling with is borderline impossible. So when it came to chess, and I was like, sorry, I need to learn how many openings if I want to be anywhere near considered good, I couldn't be bothered with it. So I tend towards other things. Like, I've been playing a lot of Peak recently. That's quite good. It's a game about climbing. I might stream that if people want. If people want to watch some Peak streams, let me know. Playing a bit of iRacing. Football Manager recently as well. I'll keep doing a little bit more Football Manager. But yeah, all sorts, basically. But not chess. Just because any creator doesn't agree when demanded to be... just because any creator does not agree when demanded to by anti-fans, it doesn't mean they're happy clappers or the channel's an echo chamber. Yeah, like, I'm not going to change my opinion because a lot of people shouted at me. I don't know. Farke said he has to work with what he has and get the best out of them. So that means that Farke... What? Will show up saying he hasn't got what he wants. I mean, yeah. I mean, you can still say that he wasn't back to the extent that he particularly wanted, but it's more of a case of, can't go back and fix it now, so we'll have to adapt. That's my job now. That's what was actually said, as opposed to what you're trying to say that he said. How does that work? Free market allows for corporations to monopolize... I maybe phrased that a bit wrong. Democratize, then, is what I'm aiming for. So YouTube is the democratization of media, is what I mean. I phrased it a bit wrong. March going short, you can sell back Farke and something to do his job. Yeah. Yu-Gi-Oh shoes. What? Yu-Gi-Oh shoes? What? There are Yu-Gi-Oh shoes? I was never a person for Yu-Gi-Oh, to be honest. Joe's Young Sheldon. I don't like Young Sheldon. Right, and it's an issue that I got with Young Sheldon and with The Big Bang Theory, and it's an issue that... How do I phrase it? Right. If you have seen the TV show Community and you are in the chat, can you press the number 1 for me? Just out of curiosity. Because that's what I'm going to compare and contrast The Big Bang Theory with. Because the issue with the Big Bang Theory, compared with Community, is the character of Sheldon is someone where he is neurodivergent, is autistic, and that is purely used as a punchline. And it's used as a case of sort of characters will look at him and go, that's fucking weird, and just laugh at him. And the same sort of applies to like the idea of nerd culture in that TV show. Whereas with Community, it's a case of you've got one character that's like autistic in the same, basically the same way, bar for bar. Same sort of neurodivergence going on. And that is played as a case of, yeah, people get annoyed at it from time to time, but it's not purely punchline time and time and time and time and time and time again. It's character, which is really good. So if anyone hasn't watched Community, watch Community. It's very good. Also, doesn't have a laugh track, and I prefer sitcoms that don't have laugh tracks. If I think you're funny, I will laugh. Don't tell me when to laugh. That doesn't help. Me and my missus sometimes do a jigsaw for foreplay, gets you in the mood. I understand there's maybe some subtext where you put pieces in holes, but Jesus. Disagree, Joe isn't a Sheldon. Sheldon's obnoxious, not self-aware. Joe's a young partridge. I would like to disagree-ish. Sort of. I wouldn't say I'm a young partridge. I would lean towards a young Coogan. Because the version of Joe that is on YouTube isn't quite the version of Joe that exists in the world. Because like everyone that is on YouTube will have a very slightly different persona in terms of what they are on camera compared to what they are as a person. So anyone that was at the charity match, for example, will know that compared to this, I'm relatively sort of scrambled. I know like show was a bit scrambled, but yeah, a bit different, if that makes sense. So I'd say, because I'm aware of the fact that there is a bit of this isn't JoJo, that it's more of a Coogan than a partridge, is where I'm going to go with it. Also, I remembered a thing. I'm going to end the stream in a couple of minutes, but I did remember something. And it's an important something that I need to remind everyone of, because I do like a train. But then again, who doesn't? Trains are great. Because I made a deal with you, chat. I made a deal that depended on the rest of the transfer window, didn't it? And it was specifically based around a similar conversation that we have had recently. I said, I've had enough of people saying I look like Steve Coogan, so I made a deal with the chat. If Leeds keep up their side of the bargain and sign a striker, a winger, and a backup fullback, I would do a stream full Alan Partridge mode. Don't want to be Coogan either, he's not licensed. Yeah, you know what I mean, though. Yeah. If we sign a striker, winger, backup fullback, we did the backup fullback. We didn't do the striker or the winger, because this was after Okafor/DCL. Because everyone was like, we still need 3 more. And I was like, I don't think we need 3 more. We still need 3 more. I don't think we do need 3 more. But you lost the right to the Partridge stream, I'm afraid to say. The opportunity's gone, and the opportunity will stay gone until January. Because if the same happens in January, then maybe, just maybe, I'll end up doing one. But at that point, we must be in relatively dire straits anyway, because that would be bad. How's the press ups? Very funny, Sean. Incredibly. What was the thumbnail of the vlog? I think I derailed you, sorry, Paul. No, it's fine. It was along the lines of how Farke's Leeds want to prove the doubters wrong, including Sean. And yeah, it's fine, isn't it? It's all good. Anyway, I'm going to end the stream there because I have a video to record, I got a couple of bits to watch, and I got work to get ready for tomorrow. I think I'm working a La Liga game, if I remember right. I'm going to have to find out which one. Because if it is Mateo Joseph, I wonder if I could work and do a watch along at the same time. Sevilla versus Elche, so it doesn't really affect us in any way, shape, or form, which is a shame. But that's fine. Anyway, gonna leave that there. Hope you all enjoyed. If you did, please pop a like on the stream. As always, it very, very, very much helps the channel. Subscribe if you haven't yet, because since we left transfer window time, you start seeing people unsubscribing, which is really bad for the mental health. It's kind of like, oh, did people just not like my shit anymore? So if you're not subscribed, double check, have a look there, press the button if you aren't, that'd be wonderful. And even be a channel member. It's $2.99 a month, you get a bunch of videos and stuff early. Absolutely very, very useful, and it makes sure that I can like reinvest a bit more into the channel and all that kind of stuff. And that includes in terms of time, I can put more time into it so I don't need to pay attention to work. And it also means that I can just sort of improve equipment and stuff over time because it becomes actually viable. Anyway, I'll leave that there. Hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you all later. Toodaloo, everyone. Thanks, iMac.